teacher after what the school calls a racially insensitive lesson and caught the attention of a lot of our viewers. Justin Lundy has been following this story and is live outside of Winterville Charter Academy with the latest. Justin.
Yes, I spoke with parents whose children tell them that a teacher here at Winterville Charter Academy used racial slurs inside an 8th grade classroom. And today, those parents are demanding immediate action and answers.
She had them raise their hand during a Constitution lesson and reminded them that if it wasn't for the Constitution, they would still be her slaves, her field slaves.
Kanisha Tillman and McKay Benjamin say their children were in an 8th grade classroom at Winterville Charter Academy. And late last month, that was the lesson on Constitution Day. Tillman says both the teacher and some white classmates then used the N-word.
And then call him a and then the teacher responded by saying when the black student tried to address it and ask her to address it, she said that, well, it's okay because we're all a little bit racist.
School leaders initially sent out a memo to parents.
All right, Shalom. I want to give all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Muharakak with Dash. I want to say double honor to the apostles and the elders at Great Millstone for teaching this word and truth and sincerity and for ruling well. And salutations to my fellow Akim across the four corners of the globe, preaching in the name of Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai. Hey, this is your brother Gabar Howard from JMS, Hawaii, coming to you with another lesson. And this lesson is on this video, that you see in front of you, where a J kid, or children actually, students, were being considered slaves by these Edomites, that they go to school with. And so, it inspired me to do this lesson because at the end of the day, that is where the majority of these Edomites and even these other nations, when they look at us, these other nations, when they look at us as servants. They look at us as slaves to them, but when we bring it up in the scriptures that, hey, there's going to be a repayment for what these nations have done to us, especially the nation of Edom, then everybody will get up in arms about slavery. But if you look at these Edomites, if you really go into their minds, if you really go behind their closed doors when they're at home and they're eating their dinner, their bland dinner, what are they saying? What are the things that they're saying? Well, they look at us as slaves, man. Especially when they see our people moving about in their minds freely, doing things and being considered the worst of the worst people. In their minds, it's like it would have been better if we was their slaves, man. But see, and this shows you that this is how these Edomites feel about you, man. But hey, guess what? There is a recompense. And you nations, you're the ones that are supposed to be slaves, not us. This is the book of Jeremiah 2:14. Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? The young lions roared upon him and yelled, and they made his land waste. His cities are burned without inhabitants. Right? So the question is, are we slaves? Are we homeborn slaves? And the answer to that is no. The reason why we were spoiled, the reason why the children of Israel, the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American were ever put into the hands of the so-called white man was for our iniquities, for our wrongings that we did against Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Real quick, Salakia. This is the book of Baruch, chapter 4, verse 6. It says, matter of fact, I'll start at 3. It says, give not thine honor to another, nor the things that are profitable unto thee to a strange nation. And that's one of the things that we did. We gave honor to another God, to other gods, which in reality were idols. All right. So we gave the honor of the Lord, the living power, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, to another. And it says, nor the things that are profitable unto thee to a strange nation. And that's what we did. We put the other nations up ahead of us. And the things that were profitable, we said that no, that belonged to another nation. So it says, and we keep reading. O Israel, happy are we, for the things that are pleasing to the Most High are made known unto us, right? Because the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Shai, is not dealing with these other nations. The Lord, Yahweh Bashem Shai, he doesn't look at them as profitable, nor the things that they do. All right, and because of that, when we did all of that, the Lord, there was a punishment for that, and the greatest punishment for that was that we were disinherited from our land. We were put into captivity, underneath these nations round about us. The same nations we thought was something, the Most High put them above us, and then now look at where we're at. These nations, they took advantage of it, and in their mindset that we're supposed to always be slaves. We're supposed to always be on the bottom. That's why they want us separated from our power, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, because as long as we're separated from them, guess what happens? They get the rule over us. And they know this. The super elite know this. These average little Edomites that you see here, spewing out their little bit of visceral hatred for you, that's just because it's in their spirit to do it. But the super elite, they keep you in a state of sitting in a perpetual state of destruction because they want you to constantly be their slaves, man. They don't want us to rule over them in righteousness. So let me keep on reading. It says, O Israel, happy are we for the things that are pleasing to the Most High are made known to us, right? They weren't known to these other nations. And what are the things that are pleasing to the Most High, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua? That keeping his laws, statutes, his commandments, that's pleasing to the Most High. And as you see, these other nations don't do it, can't do it, and won't do it. It says, be of good cheer, my people, the memorial of Israel. And that's what we are. We're the memorial of Israel. Ye were sold to the nations, not for your destruction, but because ye moved the Most High to wrath, ye were delivered unto the enemy. So anybody want to know why we went into this slavery? It's because we were sold to the nations by the Most High, not for our destruction, not for them to destroy us, but because we moved the Most High to wrath by breaking his laws, statutes, commandments over and over and over again. By one of the commandments is not to have another God other than Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. And that's something that we did. That's something that our people continue to do today. Those that are still in a state of sleep, spiritual sleep, right? So when anytime an Edomite try to raise him or herself up and assume that, if it wasn't for the Constitution, that we would still be their particular slaves, field slaves, because a lot of these Edomites, they yearn for the days of old when they had complete control over us. Like I'm talking about the average Edomite. The average Edomite in back in the day, even if he was a poor Edomite, he felt better than us. And he can exact his jealousy. He can exact his rage. He can exact his satanic hatred for you openly, man. Right? They yearn for those days where an Israelite would walk by and we had to step off the curb. If they were stepping forward, we had to look down. Like they yearn for those days, man. And that's what happens when you send your kids to these schools. A lot of people think that integration was the way. When I got this book that I have been talking about for a while now, it's entitled How White People Got So Rich, and in this book, How White People Got So Rich, or How White Folks Got So Rich, I read this yesterday on page, what was it? I'll get it real quick. I read it yesterday on page 29, and it spoke about Jim Crow. So like in the 50s, 60s, the Jim Crow era was still alive and well. And the Jim Crow era, a lot of people think that, especially when it comes to civil rights, it had something to do with drinking water, going to the same school as an Edomite, but it had nothing to do with that. The reason why Jim Crow era was ended because they wanted to end our people being independent from the so-called white man, right? So let me read this real quick. It says the term Jim Crow softens softens a harsh and violent system of repression and establish not to keep blacks from using white drinking fountains and toilets, or even to stop them from breaking the law, but to keep blacks from accumulating property, starting businesses, engaging in trade and commerce, and establishing an economic base independent from white people. The functional intent was to force free blacks back into the plantation and to perform the same roles they had been forced to carry out for a previous 310 years. So that's what that was about. And here it is. You had Martin Luther King standing up talking about, kids, black boys and little black boys and black girls, and white boys and white girls hanging out hand in hand in the kumbaya moment. You saw a whole bunch of these segregated bus companies go out of business, when a lot of the ones that were affected were the Israelite bus companies. They went out of business because they had a whole town where they were servicing taxi companies, where they were servicing while they were financially independent. Not everybody, but enough of Jakes were financially independent from the so-called white man, and they didn't want that. You had schools that were set up to teach straight up black kids. Not all black schools were had terrible books. A lot of that happened after civil rights movement happened. Yeah, you had some small rural towns where Jakes was, last on the totem pole per se. But what happened before civil rights? Well, you had towns, small cities where Israelites were self-sufficient. And the so-called white man didn't want you to be self-sufficient. They said they didn't want you to practice in commerce, trade. Okay, they didn't want you to practice in financial independence, establishing economic. So they didn't want you to establish an economic base. This is the reason why you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, when we go to schools, you're not in the best of schools. The whole system was set up to keep you dependent on the so-called white man, financially dependent on the so-called white man. Because a lot of people don't know, like during the time of Tulsa, Oklahoma, them blacks down there, they were about to start trading with Russians, man. Trading oil, getting in the oil trade, getting in the metal trade, all this other stuff. They don't tell you about that. Okay, they didn't want you to be economically free from them. They wanted you to be enslaved to them in other ways, like you were when you were on a plantation, which you had no rights, you had no ability to trade, you had no ability to really start fruitful businesses, man. You were totally under the hand of the so-called white man. And that's what Jim Crow era was really about. Keeping you Jakes back in a plantation state, man. And these Edomites, they want you there. They want to see you there. But guess what? That's not our role. The Lord didn't set us up to be servants unto you nations, because under you nations, being servants unto you, it just keep us going off. And that's not a perpetual thing. This is Baruch chapter 4, verse 25. Matter of fact, I'll start at 24. For like as now the neighbors, which are these other nations of Zion, these nations of Zion have seen your captivity, so shall they see shortly your salvation from our power, which shall come upon you with great glory and brightness of the everlasting. And this is what we teach our people, that our Savior, Yahweh Shai, the Lord, the only begotten Son, the Most High, Yahweh, his Son, Yahweh Shai, he's coming back for us. And just like these nations seen us going in captivity, you're about to witness and see our freedom, our redemption. Okay? So shall they see shortly your salvation from our God. See, this is another reason why the so-called white man took the Apocrypha out of the scriptures. Because when you read the scriptures and talk about salvation and redemption, it's constantly referring to the children of Israel. It's not referring to these other nations. And they hate that. Okay? So shall they see shortly your salvation from our God, which shall come upon you with great glory and brightness of the everlasting. My children, suffer patiently the wrath that is come upon you from the Most High. For thine enemy have persecuted thee, but shortly thou shalt see his destruction, and shalt tread upon his neck. So who's the enemy that persecuted us the most? The so-called white man. And you're about to witness his destruction. Okay? You're about to witness his destruction via the nuclear missiles, via his kingdom falling to the ground in utter ruins, man. Okay? By the destruction of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai and the holy angels. Okay? Through this third world war, the so-called white man, you're about to be put out of business, man. You're about to be put out of power. All right? And we're suffering patiently under you, man. Because if the average Edomite in his mind or her mind, as a teacher, as an educator, a so-called educator, and our kids got to be left to these. It's the nigger woman, really. She supports this system. I think these two women might be together. They support this system, and they think that ultimately there's going to be a change for our people's condition via the so-called white man turning a new leaf and establishing these bullshit laws that you think protect you. And our kids got to go to school with these Edomites. A lot of you think that our kids are just doing bad in school and they just, unteachable, when that's far from the case. Okay, that's far from the case. A lot of times these Edomites and these other nations call themselves teaching our children. They already in there with a racist viewpoint. They're already looking at our kids with a racist eye. So you can't expect somebody that hates you to properly grade you, to properly test you, and none of that stuff, man. Because what's happening? The devil is at hand, man. But we're not supposed to be slaves. Yahweh Shai didn't set us up to be hardcore slaves underneath you nations for perpetuity. In fact, that role is set up for you heathen nations. Real quick, this is Psalm chapter 2, verse 1. It says, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us, man. This is the reason why when you read Psalms 83, it tells you that that they said they didn't want us to be a nation no more, that we won't be remembered as a nation no more. That's part of their confederacy, man. To keep us blinded to the truth so that they can remain in power. See, it was all slavery and all that other shit was all good when you Edomites had us in brutal slavery and captivity, and when the other nations had us in brutal slavery and captivity. It was all good then. But now we telling you that, hey, this is actually going to happen to you. Y'all start bugging out. So again, why the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? Well, that vain thing is that y'all gonna rule over us perpetually. That y'all gonna have us in constant slavery perpetually. No. That's not gonna happen, man. You heathen nations, you're going into slavery. You're going into captivity perpetually, man. Yeah, you're gonna go in a 1,000-long-year brutal slavery, and after that, then you're going to be released back to your nations, but you're going to be the permanent workforce for the children of Israel, man. Okay? This is Salaki. This is Salaki. This is the book of Leviticus chapter 25, verse 43. Thou shalt not rule over him with rigor, but shalt fear thy power. So this is a law to the Israelites that we're not supposed to rule over our people with rigor, okay? We're not supposed to, but we're supposed to fear the Most High. So if you fear Yahweh Shem Shah, you wouldn't rule over the children of Israel with rigor. But that's what these other nations have done to us constantly, man. whenever they had an opportunity, especially the nation of Edom, the so-called white man. All right. It says, both thy bondmen and bondmaids, which these are slaves, slave men and slave women, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Of them shall ye buy bondmen and bondmaids. Moreover, of the children of strangers that do sojourn among you, of them shall ye buy, and of their families that are with you, which they beget in your land, they shall be your possession. Ye shall take them as an inheritance from your children after you, to inherit them for a possession, that they shall be bondmen forever. And but over your brethren, the children of Israel, ye shall not rule one over another with rigor. So we can rule these other nations with rigor. Okay, you're not supposed to rule over. We're not supposed to rule over each other like that. But we did that. We broke that law too. So that's why we got put into a position of rigor with these other nations, man. Let's look up that word rigor real quick. The word rigor is the Hebrew word parak, and it says harshness, severity, cruelty, man. So when we get you heathen nations in captivity, we're gonna rule over you with rigor, man. Harshness, cruelty, and severity, man. This the same way y'all ruled over us, man. And you heathen nations gonna know that your position is nothing more than to be a slave, man. And you gonna be our filled hands, man. And we gonna rule over you heathen nations with the same rigor times two, man. Can't sleep at night to can't sleep in the morning. You know, a lot of you Edomites, not just in the South, wherever you at, man. We understand that you Edomites can never be good. Nothing that you Edomites can say can ever be enough to repair the damage in which you inflicted upon the nation of Israel. From the so-called Negro all the way down to the so-called Latino, man. So you other nations, man, you're about to get it, man. Okay? Because, see, y'all want us to be your slaves, but you don't want to be our slaves. That's all right. The Most High is going to set that up right, man. You know, when you bring up slavery, our people get all benevolent to the other man, instead of to the brother man. No, but guess what? It don't matter. Yahweh Shema Shah is going to inflict destruction on you, like the scripture says in Revelation 13:9-10. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints, man. So you put somebody in captivity, you're going into captivity. If you kill a man with the sword, your ultimate outcome is you'll be killed with the sword. And that's the patience and the faith of the saints, man. That the Lord's going to pay back you other nations, man. Because, see, like, leave it up to the black woman. I think they should learn classes. And they should teach them classes. They were going to take their kid out to school, but they realized that their kid get a better education, so they think a better education. And the education is not just what they learn in school, but it's a better environment than that. Because it wasn't just the so-called teacher that did this. It was the other students in the class, too. They agreed. And she said everybody's a little bit racist. But if everybody in the world could be racist, the Most High can't be racist. But the scriptures speak about the Most High being racist about his own people. See, racism is not just, in this world, is not just the ability to discriminate. Racism is not just the ability to be prejudiced against another nation, but it's also to discriminate and use that discrimination to hold them people back, man. And keep these people in a perpetual state of oppression. You are oppressing these children's minds, man. If all they see themselves as slaves and servants to you devils, man. All right? So you heathen nations, you got it coming, man. Especially you Edomites, man. And so with that, I'm going to say shalom and on to the next.